The other big story overnight, massive story, and it affects you and your life, is COP29. Um, coalition of, or is it combination or coalition of parties, I think COP stands for. Anyhow, over 200 countries went to Azerbaijan. I'm sorry I'm laughing because the president of Azerbaijan says, drill, baby, drill, which was his essential opening theme. And they have agreed overnight to something that's going to affect your life, which isn't funny. And that is to a huge climate deal, which makes no sense to me, but here goes. Richer countries on this planet have promised to raise their funding to help poorer countries fight climate change. I don't think you fight climate change. I think you just adapt to it. So that's the word they use, fight. No, you're just adapting. To a record $300 billion. I think that's US a year. Yes, it is. It's a lot more in New Zealand terms. So that's 300 billion US a year, but the deal has come under criticism from the developing world. The talks at the UN Climate Summit, COP29 in Azerbaijan, ran 33 hours late, but came within inches of collapse as people threatened to walk out. Some groups did. But it is agreed that, and ironically, just so that you know, and not many people know this, I don't think it's been reported in the New Zealand media, one of the reasons that it almost collapsed and ran 33 years late was because of New Zealand. We were one of the holdout groups, along with Japan and one other country whose name I can't remember, because I was following this on a sort of minute-by-minute basis. I was watching the cricket test on one hand, the India-Australia cricket test, which is marvellous. Love watching the Aussies get done. But that must make us the greatest cricket team in the world, doesn't it? Because we thrashed India 3-0 over there. Now they're completely stoushing the Aussies. Does that make us... you like to do those sorts of things, don't you? And then I was watching COP29 on the other, and I couldn't work out which was more entertaining. COP29 came within inches of collapse because essentially it runs this way, and it's a bizarro. I mean, this is one of the reasons why when Donald Trump finally gets sworn in, it is inaugurated as the President of the United States of America in January of next year. So we've got to wait another 2 months. He'll pull the United States out of this whole COP stuff, as he did last time. And he'll say, we're out of here. And a lot of people will criticize him for that. And understandably, people will say, well, that's not the way you do international cooperation, stuff like that. You know, to be honest with you, I've actually got myself to the policy position of I don't blame him. Because the deal that has been reached at Azerbaijan overnight at the UN Climate Summit, COP29, is a doozy of doozy orders. And it does affect you massively. It is going to mean that in this country, as a result of the deal that was reached overnight, New Zealanders will not have... I mean, Dunedin, hello, I'd take the $1.9 billion now on your hospital and say thank you very much and slope off. Because it will make that difference. There will be hospitals not being able to build in this country. There'll be health services not be able to be provided. There'll be roads not able and bridges not able to be built. There will be schools not able to be expanded properly. There will be teachers who won't get the salaries that will attract the good teachers into the classroom. There will be police that you can no longer afford when you're trying to make sure that the gang patch ban and organised crime doesn't actually flourish in this country. There will be superannuation that they'll go, I don't know if we can afford that. Oh, we can afford that, but we can't afford anything else. The deal of COP29 is massive because New Zealand is regarded, I know, you're going to laugh at this, as a rich country. And we, as a result of the deal overnight in Azerbaijan, are going to be paying our contribution to $300 billion a year. All right? Now, the agreement falls well short of the 1.3 trillion US dollars that developing countries were pushing for. And the African group of negotiators described the final pledge as too little, too late, but it doesn't. And the representative from India dismissed the money as a paltry sum. Well, I guess it is to Indians, because you're a rich country. But New Zealand's a rich country, and wait for it. We're going to be paying money to China. Yeah, you got this right. We're going to be paying money to China and to India, and a whole series of other developing countries that are much richer than us, because apparently we're classified as a rich country and China and India are developing nations. Does that make sense to you? No. Good luck. We've signed up for it. All right? So Simon Watts, the climate change minister, now he was holding things up along with the Japanese and one other country, I can't remember. It was somewhere like, I don't know, Estonia or something like that. And they were holding things up because they didn't want to spend $300 billion. And I can imagine that Nicola Willis was saying to Simon Watts, excuse me? But anyhow, they have finally signed up to the sum of money. Now, so it's $300 billion a year by 2035. And they've also promised as part of this deal to try to raise the $1.3 trillion a year from both public and private sources by 2035. Now, it's an astronomical sum of money. We will be paying billions as our contribution towards this. Billions that we could be spending on our own infrastructure, our own health services, welfare, education, it doesn't matter, superannuation, improving this country at a time when New Zealand's finally working out we're not rich and we can't compete against other international countries in the marketplace, including, ironically, India and China. There's a word that I won't use on radio, but it's called a cluster F. This is a cluster F. This is an effing cluster F of the hugest magnitude. It's based on the fact that apparently you've got to measure carbon since 1990, and if you think the Treaty of Waitangi's mad, how could you possibly have the future of your life predicated on the basis of some document that was signed, an rat-nibbled document of 1840 that nobody really understood, which seems crazy? This is crazy too, which is on 1990, that's the way the world was, and we predicate everything going forward when it comes to climate change on what happened in 1990, which is why China is a developing country and so is India. And they're saying, well, we weren't as developed as you guys. You have to pay us. It is absurd when China is the second most important and heading for, but the second most important economic power in the world, and I would think India would be about, what, third or fourth? So there you go. Now, the other great thing about this is, who are the two leading carbon emitters in the world? Ta-da! Drum roll! Yep, that's right. China, all by itself. And it's not reducing its carbon emissions. Well, I don't suppose it is. After all, it's just built 30 coal-fired electricity power stations. And then there's India, that is also industrializing on a great place. You can't actually breathe the air because they're burning so much stuff. My God, they're carbonizing the entire country, it would appear. Not in actual fact, decarbonizing India. I said, no wonder they're playing well in India. Thank God, we can finally breathe. We're in Perth. So that's all I'm saying. This is the craziness that New Zealand signed up to. And it is going to actually mean that there's two ways of paying for it from a New Zealand perspective. Now we're going to have to sit down and work out how much it's got to cost. It'll be in the billions and billions of dollars. Craig Stobo has been on the show for the last 2 years, ever since the platform has been founded. Craig Stobo has been saying to us, oh my God, this is coming. Well, it's come. The only thing we haven't quite worked out is how much we're paying. But as a result of New Zealand signing up for COP29 overnight in Azerbaijan, we are paying, and we are paying big. The only question is, how big? There will obviously be some, what would you call it, There'll be some jiggery-pokery around the edges. There will be some odd and strange playing with figures that will occur. But New Zealand, being the little straight people that we are, will just be heading for the piggy bank, and the piggy bank is you and me, and going, excuse me, we need more money. Oh, you wanted that road built? Tough. Oh, you wanted your kids educated at a decent university? Oh, that's unfortunate. Oh, you wanted that knee replacement. We're getting rid of elective surgery. You wanted those health services in Central Otago or Nelson or Hawke's Bay, places that are growing with population? No, can't afford it. And that is the result of COP29 overnight. It is a disaster for New Zealand, but it also makes no sense. It makes no sense that New Zealand is a rich country. Apparently we were in 1990. It makes no sense that we've got to pay the largest polluters on the planet, it makes no sense that Donald Trump's going to be pulling the United States out, which means that someone is going to have to meet up the shortfall as well. I mean, you just think about it. You've agreed to $300 billion, and there are the US negotiators saying, oh, well, we've signed up for this. You might have, but Donald Trump controls the presidency, the Republicans control the Senate, and they control the House of the Representatives. It'd have to be ratified by all three of those agencies for the US commitment Azerbaijan to work. And guess what? You've got the three operations of the state, or the executive, and the legislative, and the judiciary, if you ever needed them just quietly, saying you've got to be joking. So if they pull out, where does the extra money come from as well? The risks, the danger, the bitterness, the anxiety, the stupidity, the illogic of it all, writ large in Azerbaijan, and we've signed up for it. Now, we will get Simon Watts on the show, the Minister of Climate Change, when he comes back from Azerbaijan. I imagine he's a bit tired at the moment. He did his best to try and, to be fair, to try and stop the damage. It hasn't been widely reported in New Zealand, but then I don't go to New Zealand media if I want something on COP29. I've been looking at all the other international media who actually give me an unbiased, to a large extent, and much more accurate. And I've been watching the minute-by-minute death sentence that's been applied to common sense at Azerbaijan. That's a death sentence to common sense. And that is where we are heading as a nation. New Zealanders won't worry too much about this. It's COP29. It's not happening now. Ladies and gentlemen, what happened overnight is going to affect your future and the future of your children for decades to come. And as we slump back and become a slightly colder Fiji, a slightly windier Samoa, a slightly, shall we say, laid-back Vanuatu in comparison, as that is our future progressing in front of us. Won't it be lovely to know that your money, hard-earned, that you've worked for so hard and you've endeavoured to aspire and achieve for, is going to be transferred to a whole series of people in Delhi or Beijing or thereabouts, run by countries that are not really democracies, and they're just sitting there, putting that money there, thinking to themselves, I love New Zealanders. There's a victim born every moment, and there's 5.5 million of them sitting down at the bottom of the South Pacific. Those are my thoughts this morning. What are yours?